Γεια σας, καλημέρα. Με λένε Stalo, and today we are going to talk about adjectives in Greek. The comparison of adjectives will be covered in a separate video. Πάμε! The Greek word for adjective is το επίθετο. An adjective is a word that describes a noun. It gives information about the noun, some characteristic of the noun. It always goes together with a noun unless the noun is implied. Adjectives have three genders, masculine, feminine, and neuter. They always agree with the nouns that they describe in gender, masculine, feminine, or neuter, number, singular or plural, and case, nominative, genitive, accusative, or vocative. Some adjectives are declined like nouns that have the same endings. As a general rule, the accent remains on the same syllable as in the initial position, the nominative case, but there are also a few exceptions. Let's look at some examples. Ο ωραίος κήπος, the beautiful garden. An adjective can be used with the definite article, ο. Ένας ήσυχος δρόμος, a quiet road. Here it's used with the indefinite article, ένας. Or it can be used without any article. Καλή φωνή, good voice. Έχει καλή φωνή, she has a good voice. Το μικρό παιδί, the small child. Μια υγιής γυναίκα, a healthy woman. Ένα μεγάλο λάθος, a big mistake. Notice that the endings of the adjectives do not necessarily have to match the endings of the noun. If a noun is neuter, for example, the adjective must be neuter too, but the endings can be different, like in these three examples. Το μικρό παιδί. Παιδί ends in iota, the adjective ends in omicron. Μια υγιής γυναίκα. The noun γυναίκα ends in alpha, but the adjective ends in is. Ένα μεγάλο λάθος. The noun λάθος ends in os, but the adjective ends in o. So when we talk about agreement between nouns and adjectives, we mean gender, number, and case, not endings. That's why it's so important to learn each new noun with its article so that you will know the gender. And just a reminder here, if you like my videos, please take a moment to subscribe to my channel. It's absolutely free. Thank you. Adjectives are grouped together by their endings. Number 1. Adjectives in os, I, o. It's the biggest and most common group. It includes adjectives with any consonant or unaccented vowel except all forms of I. Iota, ypsilon, epsilon iota, omicron iota, before the ending. For example, kalos. This is the ending os, and there is a consonant lambda before the ending. Έτοιμος, mi, a consonant. Mikros, ro, a consonant. Ήσυχος, he, a consonant. Here we have a vowel, an unaccented vowel, before the ending. Aenaos, alpha. Βέβαιος, alpha iota. Υπάκουος, omicron ypsilon. Όγδοος, omicron. And this is how the adjectives of this group are declined. Καλός, καλού, καλό, καλέ. Καλή, καλόν, καλούς, καλή. It's declined just like a noun ending in os, like γάτος, for example. The feminine, καλή, καλής, καλή, καλή. Καλές, καλόν, καλές, καλές. It's declined like the noun αδελφή. And the neuter, καλό, καλού, καλό, καλό. Καλά, καλόν, καλά, καλά. It's declined just like the noun παγωτό. Number 2, adjectives in os, a, o. This group includes adjectives with any accented vowel or any form of e. Iota, ypsilon, epsilon iota, omicron iota, accented or not before the ending. For example, neos, it has an accented vowel, epsilon. Ωραίος, an accented vowel combination. Πράος, alpha. Αθώος, omega. Κρύος, this is an accented e, ypsilon. Αστείος, an accented epsilon iota. Τίμιος, here the iota has no accent. And αιώνιος, again, the iota here has no accent. The only difference between this group and the previous group, group 1, is in the singular of the feminine form. Everything else is exactly the same. So the masculine and the neuter forms are declined just like the masculine and neuter forms of the first group. The feminine in the singular has an alpha instead of an eta. So, νέα, νέας, νέα, νέα. The plural is the same as the plural of the feminine form of the first group. Number 3, adjectives in is, ya, I. There is an alternate older spelling for the feminine in epsilon iota alpha. For example, γλυκής, πλατής, βαθύς, βαρύς, ελαφρύς. And the feminine, γλυκιά, the older spelling would be γλυκιά with epsilon iota. Πλατιά, older spelling, πλατιά with epsilon iota. And this is how they are declined. Βαθύς, βαθύ or βαθιού, βαθύ, βαθύ. Βαθιή, βαθιών, βαθιούς, βαθιοί. Βαθιά, βαθιάς, βαθιά, βαθιά. Βαθιές, βαθιών, βαθιές, βαθιές. Βαθύ, βαθύ or βαθιού, βαθύ, βαθύ. Βαθιά, βαθιών, βαθιά, βαθιά. Number 4, adjectives in is with eta, is with eta, and s. The endings are the same for masculine and feminine. Some examples, διεθνής, σαφής, ειλικρινής, ακριβής, υγιής. Σαφής, σαφούς, σαφή, σαφή or σαφής, σαφής, σαφών, σαφής, σαφής. Σαφής, σαφούς, σαφή, σαφή or σαφής, σαφής, σαφών, σαφής, σαφής. Σαφές, σαφούς, σαφές, σαφές. Σαφή, σαφών, σαφή, σαφή. Number 5, adjectives in on, ούσα, on. For example, ενδιαφέρον, παρόν, πρωτεύον, μέλλον. Παρόν, παρόντος, παρόντα, παρόν. Παρόντες, παρόντων, παρόντες, παρόντες. Παρούσα, παρούσας, παρούσα, παρούσα. Παρούσες, παρουσών, Here the accent goes to the last syllable. Παρούσες, παρούσες. Παρών, παρόντος, παρών, παρών. Παρόντα, παρόντων, παρόντα, παρόντα. Number 6, the adjective πολύς, πολύ, πολύ, which means much. This adjective does not belong to any group. The genitive πολλού that we will see in a minute in the masculine and neuter forms is used only in specific expressions. The vocative is not used. Some people get confused about when to use one lambda and when to use two lambda. An easy way to remember is to remember that we use only one lambda before ypsilon. In all other cases, it's two lambda. Πολύς, one lambda because we have the ypsilon. Πολύ, again, one lambda, πολλού, two lambda. Πολύ, one lambda because it's just ypsilon. Πολύ, πολλών, πολλούς. Πολύ, πολλής, πολύ. Πολλές, πολλών, πολλές. Πολύ, one lambda because we have ypsilon. Πολύ, again, one lambda because of the ypsilon. Πολλού, πολύ, πολλά, πολλών, πολλά. Finally, number 7 includes several smaller groups of adjectives. Adjectives in is, ya, I. For example, σταχτής. Adjectives in is, a, οίκο. For example, τεμπέλης. Adjectives in is or as, ου, είδικο or άδικο. For example, μερακλής. Adjectives in on. For example, μετριόφρον. Adjectives in is, ία, ή. For example, ευθύς. Adjectives in os, ια, ο. For example, γλυκός, φρέσκος, κακός, ξαθός. And adjectives in is, es. For example, συνήθις. The feminine is the same, συνήθις, but the neuter is σύνηθες. The accent goes from the second to last syllable to the third to last syllable. That's all for today. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time. Ευχαριστώ. Γεια σας.